Okay, we'll start with the Mangalacharan. Om Ajnana Timirandasya, Jnananjana Shalakaya, Chakshurunmiltamena Tasmai Sri Gurue Nama, Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayarupa Gadamayam Datati Swaparantikam, Vandeyam Sri Guru Sri Udapatakalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha, Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Stamsa Jivam, Sadvaitam Saudutam Paljana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha, He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati, Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste, तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Hare Krishna. So today we'll continue with verse 15 and 16. So last week we saw uh, verses 13 and 14 regarding mostly these verses were focused on descriptions regarding the Brahmana community who are all present at the Jata Karma ceremony of Maharaj Parikshit, and in the purports we saw detailed descriptions regarding the Brahmana community about what defines a Brahmana and what is their role in the society and why they are seen as occupying an exalted position. So it has got nothing to do with the kind of malicious propaganda that is being spread by the groups with vested interests. So they all do it only to satisfy their paymasters. But based on the authentic Shastras, the Brahmanas occupy a very exalted position in the society, mainly because they propagate Brahma Vidya or knowledge about Brahman, and it is their only goal in life. So real Brahmanas, they for them being self-realized souls, though they get material wealth in the form of charity from the other four Varnas, they do not use it for their own purpose. Of course, they cover their bare minimum necessities, and they use the excessive uh, amount of charity for the purpose of propagating knowledge among the other Varnas in the society. So all the detailed descriptions are available in these two verses, in verse 13 and 14. So in these two purports, Srila Prabhupada has actually given the exact description that is available in the authentic Shastras, and also how distortions have been happening. So today we'll look at text 15. Tam Brahmanastushta Rajanam Prashrayanvitam Esha Yasmin Prajatantau Purunam Pauravalshava Tam Brahmanastushta Rajanam Prashrayanvitam Esha Yasmin Prajatantau Purunam Pauravalshava Tam Brahmanastushta Rajanam Prashrayanvitam Esha Yasmin Prajatantau Purunam Pauravalshava Brahmanastushta Rajanam Prashayanvitam Esha Yasmin Prajatantau Purunam Pauravarshava. Okay, anyone want to recite?
Can I try, Babu?
Okay, Guru.
Samuchur Brahmanastusta Rajanam Pasraya Anvidam Esa Hi Asmin Praja Tantav Purunam Paura Vishaba.
Okay, thank you, Guru. Anyone else? Hare Krishna. Maybe one more person. Okay, we look at the synonyms. Tammuchur Brahmanas Tushta Rajanam Prashrayanvitam Aishayasmin Prajatantau Purunam Pauravar Shabbat. Synonyms: Tam, unto him, Utsu, addressed, Brahmana, the learned Brahmanas, Tushta, very much satisfied, Rajanam, unto the king, Prashraya Anvitam, very much obliging, Aishai, this he certainly, Asmin, in the chain of Prajatantau, descending line, Purunam, of the Purus, Pauraval Shaba, the chief among the Purus. Translation: the learned Brahmanas, who are very satisfied with the charities of the king, addressed him as the chief amongst the Purus and informed him that his son was certainly in the line of descent from the Purus. So this is the point where the Brahmanas are praising Maharaj Yudhishthira and also Maharaj Parikshit and glorifying mainly the position of Maharaj Parikshit, who was born in that dynasty, and they were also pleased with the charities given by Maharaj Yudhishthira. So this was how learned Brahmanas behave, and they always got the significant amount of charity from the kings who understood their position in the society. Okay, next verse 16. Daivena pratigatena sukle samstam upeyushi ratovo anugrahartaya Vishnuna Prabhavishnuna. Daivena pratigatena sukle samstam upeyushi ratova anugrahartaya Vishnuna Prabhavishnuna. Synonyms: Daivena, by supernatural power; Apratigatena, by what is irresistible; Sukle, unto the pure; Samstam, destruction; Upayusi, having been enforced; Rataha, restored; Vaha, for you; Anugraha, Artaya, for the sake of obliging; Vishnuna, by the all-pervasive Lord; Prabha Vishnuna, by the all-powerful. So here, similar to the previous verse also, we can see these sandhis in this line, Rajanam Prashrayanvitam. So this is a sandhi of these two words, Prashraya Anvitam. So when the sandhi happens, it becomes the two R's meet, become the big R. Also similarly here, Anugraha Artaya. So this is a sandhi of Anugraha Artaya. So when the two small R's meet, becomes a big R. Translation: the Brahmana said, this spotless sun has been restored by the all-powerful and all-pervasive Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. In order to oblige you, he was saved when he was doomed to be destroyed by an irresistible supernatural weapon. So the Brahmanas are talking to Maharaj Yudhishthira, and they are referring to whom? They are talking about who? Hare Krishna. The Brahmanas are describing about
Parikshit Maharaj.
Okay. So here we can see Ratovo Anugrahataya. So this is how he actually also got the name Vishnu Rata. he was protected by Vishnu. So Maharaj Parikshit was also he was also known as Vishnu Ratha. Purport: the child Parikshit was saved by the all-powerful and all-pervasive Vishnu, Lord Krishna, for two reasons. The first reason is that the child in the womb of his mother was spotless due to his being a pure devotee of the Lord. The second reason is that the child was the only surviving male descendant of Puru, the pious forefather of the virtuous king Yudhishthira. So, as we know, the generation after the Pandavas, they were all they all got killed, especially the sons of Draupadi. They were all killed by Shwatama after the war. So there was no offspring left to continue the reign after Maharaj Yudhishthira. So particularly for this reason, he was saved by Lord Krishna. And it is also worth noting that Lord Krishna specifically, he knew who should rule the kingdom. So that is exactly what he did, as he himself says in Gita 4.7 and 4.8, especially in verse 4.8. Lord Krishna says, Paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya chadushriram dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So to re-establish the principles of dharma. And related to this, in the previous verse, in 4.7, Gita 4.7, he says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyam. So as adharmic forces cause disturbance in the planet, so the Supreme Lord descends to re-establish the principles of dharma. And in the context of Mahabharata, we can see that the adharmic forces, they were causing a lot of disturbance because the kingdom was being ruled by such adharmic forces. And it was due to the supreme will of Lord Krishna that he himself wanted to wipe out those adharmic forces and install Maharaj Yudhishthira, the Pandavas, as the rulers of Hastinapura. And he also made sure that the lineage continued through Maharaj Parikshit, who was also a glorious devotee of Lord Krishna. So it is only due to the supreme will of the Supreme Lord that the pious devotees of the Supreme Lord were able to rule the kingdom. But as we have seen in the previous verses also, especially in this chapter, the Pandavas were never they never gave in to any sort of temptation by the material opulence which they were able to experience, because for them, even in the prayers of Queen Kunti, there is a certain point where she actually says that she wants all the troubles and misfortunes which they had been through earlier. She actually wishes that she could go through the same problems again and again, so that the Supreme Lord will always arrive to save them. So despite belonging to the Kshatriya Varna, they were never they never actually succumbed to the temptations of material opulence. They were always the topmost devotees of the Supreme Lord first. So the Supreme Lord also gave them the chance to rule the kingdom in order to re-establish the principles of dharma. So this all these happened in Dwapara Yuga, especially towards the end of Dwapara Yuga. But we are seeing the exact opposite things happening now in Kali Yuga. The Lord wants to continue the line of pious kings to rule over the earth as his representatives for the actual progress of a peaceful and prosperous life. So a true ruler who rules according to the authentic Shastras, he would only consider himself as a representative of the Supreme Lord and rule according to the injunctions of the Shastras based on the advice of the Brahmana community. So, whether it was in the Mahabharata or even in the Ramayana, the kings were always accompanied by the Brahmana community, the Rajagurus who guided the Kshatriyas in the business of administration to make sure that the kingdom was being ruled according to dharmic principles. So the king who gets to rule, ideally he should be a devotee of the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, we also have many examples of those who actually wanted to replace the Supreme Lord, like Hiranyakashipu and Ravana. They were thinking that they could replace the Supreme Lord, and we know what happened to them. So, unlike those miscreants, the topmost devotees who get the chance to rule according to the dharmic principles, they were always blessed by the Supreme Lord. And especially here in the context of Mahabharata, we can see that the Supreme Lord Krishna, he did not only install Maharaj Yudhishthira as the king of Hastinapura, but he also made sure that Maharaj Parikshit could also continue after Maharaj Yudhishthira and the Pandavas departed after ruling the kingdom. Maharaj Yudhishthira could actually continue, and mainly for that purpose, the Supreme Lord saved Maharaj Parikshit. After the battle of Kurukshetra, even up to the generation of Maharaj Yudhishthira was annihilated, and there were none who could generate another son in the great royal family. Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, was the only surviving heir apparent in the family, and by the irresistible supernatural Brahmastra weapon of Ashwatthama, he was forced to be annihilated. Lord Krishna is described herein as Vishnu, and this is also significant. Lord Krishna, the original personality of Godhead, does the work of protection and annihilation in his capacity of Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. So what is the difference between Lord Krishna and Vishnu? Yes, any volunteers? Or is there any difference at all?
None.
Okay. Any explanation, Prabhu?
Because they are personal expansions of Krishna, Lord Krishna. Prabhu.
Yeah. So as mentioned here, Lord Vishnu is the plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. So particularly the word plenary expansion means that even the expansion Vishnu is as powerful and equal as Lord Krishna himself. However, there are certain differences, like we can actually see how Lord Krishna, from his Swayam Rupa, he expands into the Vishnu Tattvas, and also there are four main Tattvas, like the Jiva Tattva, Shiva Tattva, Vishnu Tattva, and Krishna Tattva. So all these different tattvas, they differ according to various qualities. The Supreme Lord Krishna, actually, he has infinite qualities, but it is stated that he has 64 prominent qualities. So the Jiva Tattva, the topmost Jiva Tattva is, who is the topmost Jiva Tattva? Example?
Brahma.
Yeah, nice, bro. So Lord Brahma is the topmost Jiva Tattva, and even for him, he only has about 50 out of the 64 qualities. So those who, all the living entities, out of all the living entities, the enlightened souls, if they get to have all these 50 qualities out of the 64, they can be elevated to the level of Brahma. But beyond that is Shiva Tattva. So Lord Brahma himself, he is also part of the material universe. Even Satyaloka, the abode of Brahma, is the topmost planet out of the 14 planetary systems, but still it is part of the material universe, and that's why Lord Krishna also explains in Gita chapter 8, particularly in verse number 16, that all the three worlds, and the 14 planetary systems in the material universe, they are all subject to repeated cycles of creation and annihilation. But beyond the material universe, beyond Satyaloka, between the material world and the spiritual world, between the two, is the abode of Shiva. So Shiva Tattva is the bridge between the living entities, the Jiva Tattvas, and Vishnu Tattva. So Shiva Tattva, he has 5 qualities in addition to the Jiva Tattva. So Shiva Tattva has 55 qualities out of the 64. Next, beyond Shiva Tattva is Vishnu Tattva. So the Vishnu Tattvas are all the expansions, like beyond the abode of Shiva is the spiritual world, starting from the Vaikuntha region, and beyond that, beyond the Vaikuntha region is the Goloka region. But even the Goloka region itself, it consists of 3 divisions, which include, what are the divisions in Goloka region? Anyone? There are 3 dhams in Goloka region.
Krishna Loga, Dwaraka,
Yeah.
Dwaraka and Mathura.
Yeah. So Krishna Loka, also known as Goloka Vrindavana, then followed by Mathura and Dwaraka. And then below that, we have Ayodhya Dham, and below Ayodhya Dham is the entire Vaikuntha region, consisting of the innumerable Vaikuntha planets. So all the expansions below Krishna Loka consist of the Vishnu Tattvas. So there are 60 qualities. The Vishnu Tattvas have 60 qualities out of the 64. So even the Narayana expansions in Vaikuntha, and also the expansions which descend to the material world, they all originate from these Vishnu Tattvas. However, the expansions which happen in the spiritual world, they are known as expansions. But when the same expansions descend to the material world, they are particularly known as avatars. And of course, beyond the Vaikuntha Loka, in Goloka Vrindavana, Lord Krishna resides there in his Swayam Rupa, the original personality of Godhead, and he has the complete set of 64 qualities. However, it is to be noted that these 64 qualities of Lord Krishna are regarded as the most prominent qualities. Lord Krishna has infinite amount of qualities. It is not that he has only 64, but these 64 are the most prominently highlighted in the scriptures. So if we look at the Goloka chart, so as mentioned by Prabhu, within the Goloka region, there are the three dhams, Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavana, Mathura and Dwarka. So in Krishna Loka, Lord Krishna is present in his Swayam Rupa, and from this original personality, from this Swayam Rupa, all the different expansions originate. So the Supreme Lord is present in all the dhams. So we can clearly see that even within the Goloka region, there are three main dhams. So he is engaged in all the eternal pastimes, in all the dhams, with all the exalted devotees. So he is present in all the different dhams, eternally engaged in the pastimes through his various expansions. So it is particularly mentioned that he is engaged in the eternal pastimes together with the liberated souls in the spiritual world, because the spiritual world is devoid of the influence of time. We, in the material world, we are forced to go through so many sufferings, mainly due to the influence of time. So that's why the out of the 5 subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, time is also one of the 5 important subject matters, because time is what, apart from the other aspects, time is also one very important aspect which makes the material world distinct from the spiritual world. It is the influence of time which makes the material world such a miserable and fallible place. So only due to the influence of time, the material world is always subject to go through the repeated cycles of creation and annihilation. So within the Goloka Dham itself, there are all these different expansions, and particularly there is the Adi Chaturviha expansion, the first Chaturviha expansion, which becomes the source for all the Narayana expansions in the Vaikunta region. So after the Goloka region, below it is the Vaikunta region, and the Narayana forms present in the Vaikunta region, they are actually a product of the first Chaturvyuha expansion. So the Narayana forms are the Narayana expansions are generated from the Adi Chaturvyuha, and even within the Vaikunta region, which consists of innumerable Vaikunta planets. In all these Vaikunta planets, the Supreme Lord is present in his Narayana form, the 400 Narayana form. And from these expansions, the Dvitiya Chaturvyuha, the secondary Chaturvyuha expansion, is generated, and it becomes the source for the expansions which occur in the material world. So from the original personality, from the Swayam Rupa, the first Chaturvyuha is created for the expansions, for the Narayana expansions in the Vaikunta Loka. Then from within Vaikunta Loka itself, the secondary Chaturvyuha expansions happen, which become the source for the avatars that descend to the material world. So, as mentioned earlier, expansions which happen within the spiritual world, they are known as expansions, but the expansions which particularly descend to the material world, they are known as avatars. And that's why in chapter 3 of the first canto, it is titled Krishna is the source of all expansions, of all incarnations. So the title of chapter 3 is Krishna is the source of all incarnations. So the 22 incarnations covered in chapter 3 of the first canto, they are particularly focused on the incarnations which descended to the material world. So from the Dvitiya Chaturya in the Vaikuntha Loka, the avatars, all the 6 categories of avatars, they are generated. So starting from the Purusha Avatara, Lila Avatara, Guna Avatara, Shakti Avesh Avatara, Yuga Avatara, and Manvantara Avatars. So regarding these expansions also, there are further descriptions in the Gita purports in verse 15.7. So in verse 15.7 of the Gita, as the Supreme Lord says, Amaivamso Jivaloke Jivabhuta Sanatana Manashasthani Prakrishtani Karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. So, whether it is for the personal expansions of Lord Krishna or for the expanded, separated expansions, they all come from the same single source, that is the Swayam Rupa of Bhagavan. So it all originates from the topmost Dham in Krishna Loka or Goloka Vrindavana. It is clearly said, Sanatanaha. So both the Supreme Lord and also all his expansions, whether it is his personal expansions or the separated expansions of living entities, all are eternal. According to the Vedic version, the Supreme Lord manifests and expands himself in innumerable expansions, of which the primary expansions are called Vishnu Tattva and the secondary expansions are called the living entities. So all the personal expansions of the Supreme Lord present in the spiritual world and also those that descend to the material world, they are all the personal expansions known as Vishnu Tattvas. But beyond that, there's also the separated expansions from which the living entities are generated by his personal expansion. He is manifested in various forms like Lord Rama, Narasimha Vishnumurti, and all the predominating deities in the Vaikuntha planets. The separated expansions, the living entities, are eternally servitors. The personal expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the individual identities of the Godhead are always present. So, just like within the Goloka region, from the Swayam Rupa of Bhagavan Krishna, all his different expansions are also present in the different dhams. Similarly, his expansion in the form of Lord Rama is also present in Ayodhya Dham, and similarly, the Narayana expansions are also present in the innumerable Vaikuntha planets. So all these expansions are present eternally in all the different dhams, eternally engaged in the eternal pastimes. So, not just for the Jiva Tattvas, even the Vishnu Tattvas, they are present in all the different dhams, being engaged in the different pastimes with the all the liberated and exalted devotees. So the Supreme Lord is present in all these different expansions, mainly to enable the liberated souls to serve him according to all their different moods. So within the Vaikuntha region, the Narayana form, which is worshipped by uh, the devotees, like in the Sri Sampradaya. So their their mellow is like very formal with the Supreme Lord. So they are able to worship him according to a more formal relationship within the Vaikuntha regions by serving the four-handed Narayana form. But in the Goloka region, it is a more personal relationship with the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord is present in all the different dhams to be engaged with all the different devotees according to their mellows. So apart from these personal expansions, the separated secondary expansions are known as the Jiva Tattvas. So the living entities are the secondary expansions of the Supreme Lord. The personal expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the individual identities of the Godhead are always present. Similarly, the separated expansions of living entities have their identities as fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. The living entities also have fragmental portions of his qualities, of which independence is one. So we can clearly see that the Jiva Tattvas are very minute in terms of the quality of the expansion compared to the Vishnu Tattva, which is the plenary expansion. So the plenary expansion can be explained using the analogy of lamp, or in the Brahma Samhita, it is explained using the analogy of a candle. So if we have the main altar lamp in the temple, so from the main altar lamp, we can light up hundreds or even thousands of ghee lamps. But all the different lamps, they are like the plenary expansions. So in the Brahma Samhita also, it is stated that all the different personal expansions of the Supreme Lord, like Lord Rama, Lord Narsinga, all these different personal expansions, they are also like the different candles or lamps lighted from the main original source, that is the Swayam Rupa of Bhagavan Krishna. But the separated expansions or the secondary expansions in the form of Jiva Tattvas, we are actually very minute. However, we still have our freedom or minute form of independence. By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul, and by proper use of independence, he is always liberated. So the main reason why we are looking at these details is again because from these explanations, it the notion of certain other schools of thought which propagate the notion of being the same as the Supreme Lord, or merging with the Supreme Lord, oneness with the Supreme Lord, all these notions are clearly in contradiction with what we can observe from the authentic scriptures. So our position is that we are clearly the secondary or separated expansions. So it is nonsensical to regard ourselves being Jiva Tattvas. We can never regard ourselves as being equal to the Supreme Lord. So it is only due to ignorance, and also due to the tendency of studying only from WhatsApp University, that people tend to propagate these silly notions like everything is God, everyone is God. So the living entities, the Jiva Tattvas, as we saw earlier, that is the Jiva Tattva, Shiva Tattva, Vishnu Tattva, and the top of Krishna Tattva. So the Jiva Tattvas are actually minute and secondary, separated expansions. We are clearly different from the Swayam Rupa of Bhagavan, and also the personal expansions of Bhagavan. So the notion of oneness with God or merging with God, everything is clearly in contradiction with the authentic scriptures. Every living entity, as an individual soul, has his personal individuality and a minute form of independence. By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul, and by proper use of independence, he is always liberated. In either case, he is qualitatively eternal, as the Supreme Lord is. So we are minute, we are the secondary expansions of the Supreme Lord. However, we have qualitative similarity in the sense that we are spirit souls who are also eternal as the Supreme Lord himself. So we have only very these minute similarities with the Supreme Lord. In his liberated state, he is freed from this material condition and he is under the engagement of transcendental service unto the Lord. So being the secondary separated expansions of the Supreme Lord, our position is clearly is that of the servants of the Supreme Lord. So the separated secondary expansions of the Supreme Lord are meant to be servants, and we are never meant to be enjoyers. So if we actually want to be enjoyers, then we can remain in our deluded condition in this dukkhalayam and keep thinking that we are actually enjoying. So that will be the conditioned state of our life as what we have been going through before this. So from the right from the creation itself, like from our original position itself, our constitutional position itself is that we are meant to be servants because we are merely the secondary separated expansions of the Supreme Lord. So there is a difference between the Jiva Tattvas and the higher Tattvas, and particularly the Supreme Lord himself in his Swayam Rupa. As a result, he has to struggle very hard to maintain his existence in the material world. So if we do not understand our eternal constitutional position as servants of the Supreme Lord, so when we refuse to act as servants of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world, which is actually our original our place of origin. So since we refused to act according to our original role that was meant for us, so now we are in this material world, though we tend to think that we are enjoying, that we are being enjoyers and controllers, but still we actually remain as servants in this material world. We are still servants of Maya, and Maya itself is nothing but the inferior material energy of the Supreme Lord. So in either case, we have to remain as servants because that is our original constitutional position. Nothing can change that. So if we refuse to remain engaged in the eternal service to the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world, then we'll have to remain in this deluded condition in the material world as servants of Maya. But the deal is such that we get to experience the problems of Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi and also the threefold miseries of Adhyatmic, Adivik, Adibhautik miseries throughout our existence in this material world. But in contrast to that, if we realize our original constitutional position and if we remain in our eternal position of servitude to the Supreme Lord, then we can experience eternal bliss. So apart from that, regarding the nature, the characteristics of the soul, also as the Supreme Lord has said, the spirit souls are eternal fragmental parts. So this is also related to this verse from the Gita. In 2.23, the Supreme Lord says, Nainam chindati shastrani, Nainam davati pavaka, na chainam kledayanti apo, na sosyati marutaha. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. So it is actually the verse spoken in chapter 15 of the Gita. It is also consistent with what was mentioned in chapter 2, because the spirit souls are not, they are eternal fragmental parts. So they are eternally fragmented. So it is not like the spirit souls can be cut from the source, or the spirit souls can actually merge into oneness. So as mentioned here, as mentioned in chapter 15, the spirit souls are eternally fragmented and will remain eternally fragmented. Even after liberation, the individual spirit souls remain as individuals. So there is no notion of merging into the Supreme or merging into oneness. So regarding Vishnu Tattva, so Vishnu Tattva is comes under the personal expansion, the primary expansion of the Supreme Lord, and the living entities are the secondary separated expansions. So the Dvaita concept is clearly established in the authentic scriptures based on the words spoken by the Supreme Lord himself. So if we use the purports and commentaries of our acharyas, so there's always the tendency of the other people from the other schools of thought. They always tend to say that maybe we are biased to the commentary of our own acharyas, but simply if we look at the words spoken by the Supreme Lord himself, especially in these two verses, in chapter 2 of the Gita, 2.23, the Supreme Lord gives the characteristic features of the spirit soul, about how the soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. So when all this is not possible, so how is it possible for the soul, the individual spirit soul, to be merged into oneness? Because it was never cut in the first place. So there's no room for the merging process. As the Supreme Lord mentions again in chapter 15, the jiva, the jivas or the individual spirit souls, they are all eternally fragmented. So will also remain eternally fragmented. So even this applies even to the liberated souls. So again, there's no validity in the notion of oneness or merging with the Supreme Lord. So that is regarding the Vishnu Tattva, and also Vishnu Tattva, which is the primary expansion, and also the Jiva Tattvas, which are the secondary expansions. Again, another point mentioned in this verse from verse 16 of chapter 12 is that the Supreme Lord has been described as all-powerful and all-pervasive. So Lord Vishnu performs his task in the material world, though he is the planetary expansion. So the Lord Vishnu is he is particularly engaged in these duties in the material world, and he is also described as all-pervasive. So as we know, the expansion of Lord Vishnu is present in the localized form in every atom of the material world. So it all begins from the first Purusha Avatara, from Mahavishnu, then Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, then Shirodakashaya Vishnu, who expands as the localized Paramatma version who is present in not only in the hearts of living entities, but also in every atom within the material world. So that explains the all-pervasive characteristic of the Supreme Lord. Though the Swayam Rupa of Bhagavan Krishna is always present in Krishna Loka, still he conducts all the business of this material world through the Vishnu expansion, mainly the three Purushavatara expansions. The all-pervasive activities of the Lord are executed by him in his Vishnu feature. Child Parikshit is described here as spotlessly white because he is an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. Such unalloyed devotees of the Lord appear on the earth just to execute the mission of the Lord. The Lord desires the conditioned souls hovering in the material creation to be reclaimed, to go back home, back to Godhead, and thus he helps them by preparing the transcendental literatures like the Vedas, by sending missionaries of saints and sages, and by deputing his representative, the spiritual master. Such transcendental literatures, missionaries, and representatives of the Lord are spotlessly white because the contamination of the material qualities cannot even touch them. They are always protected by the Lord when they are threatened with annihilation. So, as we can clearly see from the example of Maharaj Parikshit, though he was attacked by the Brahmastra, which is the most powerful weapon, but it was the supreme will of the Supreme Lord, mainly due to the supreme will of the Supreme Lord, that he was saved from the most powerful weapon, even after being attacked by the most powerful weapon. They are always protected by the Lord when they are threatened with annihilation. Such foolish threats are made by the gross materialist. So example here, Ashwatthama, he was thinking that he could annihilate the entire lineage of the Pandavas, but due to the supreme will of the Supreme Lord, even the most powerful weapon could not annihilate Maharaj Parikshit. The Brahmastra, which was thrown by Ashwatthama at the child Parikshit, was certainly supernaturally powerful, and nothing of the material world could resist its force of penetration. However, this Brahmastra weapon, which is supposed to be the most powerful within the material world, is still can be regarded as nothing but merely a byproduct of the material energy. So everything that exists are only due to the creation of the Supreme Lord himself. So this Brahmastra weapon, which is supposed to be the most powerful weapon, still it could not touch, it could not annihilate Maharaj Parikshit, who was protected by the all-powerful Supreme Lord. The all-powerful Lord who is present everywhere, within and without. So the Lord is present within and without. When we say he is present within, he is present within the hearts of all living entities as the localized Paramatma expansion, and he is also present in his eternal abode, the topmost abode, Goloka Vrindavana. He could counteract it by his all-powerful potency just to save a bona fide servant of the Lord and a descendant of another devotee, Maharaj Yudhishthira, who was always obliged by the Lord by his causeless mercy. So there's also the expression of no one can kill the one who is protected by the Supreme Lord, and the one who is not protected by the Supreme Lord can never be saved. So regardless of the Brahmastra, the threat of the Brahmastra weapon, still Maharaj Parikshit was saved because the Supreme Lord is the all-powerful, and everything that exists is nothing but a spark of his energy. So now we'll just continue with the Sarartha Darshini commentary for this verse. For verse 15 and 16, the translation, the satisfied Brahmanas said to the humble king, O best of men, though the pure dynasty of Puru was destroyed by unavoidable destiny, this son has been given as mercy to you by the powerful Vishnu. Therefore, he will be known as Vishnu Ratha, gift of Vishnu, and without doubt in this world will be the best, the greatest devotee, O fortunate king. So, as mentioned earlier, Maharaj Parishit got this name of Vishnu Ratha as he was protected and restored by Lord Vishnu. In the commentary, it is stated, though the pure Shukle dynasty of the Purus was destroyed, Upayushi, this son was given, Ratha. The Brahmanas say without doubt to the king who did not believe that his son had such qualities. So this is from the Sararata Darshini commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So that's all for today. Next week we'll continue with verse 17. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Prabhu,
Yes,
what
Ru.
do you mean by philosophical Vishnu? The Mayavadis worship philosophical Vishnu. Prabhu.
Philosophical Vishnu.
Yeah, in the Bhagavad Gita it is there, Prabhu. Because they don't really worship Lord Krishna. They put down they worship philosophical Krishna, Vishnu.
Oh, in which chapter?
I don't remember, bro, but it's been there in my mind. Maybe I have look for it and keep it in mind, bro. When you come next, I can tell you.
Yeah, okay. But the core of the Mayavadi notion is regarding the oneness notion, because they mainly propagate the Advaita notion.
Yeah.
So that is what is in contradiction with the exact words spoken by Krishna himself. So as we saw earlier in verses 2.23 and also 15.7 from the Gita, if we explain based on our Acharya's commentary and purports, so those people from other schools of thought, they might accuse us by saying that we are biased according to our own commentaries, but simply by looking at the exact words spoken by Krishna himself in the Gita, it is very clear that the Jiva Tattvas are clearly subservient to the Supreme Lord. So there is a distinction between the two. So we, Jiva Tattvas, are distinct, and as Krishna himself says in 15.7 particularly, the Jiva Tattvas are eternally fragmented. So the fragmentation is eternal. There was never a time when we were merged with the Supreme, and we are not going to get merged into the Supreme. So that is what Krishna means when he says eternally fragmented, part and parcel. So this is based on the exact words spoken by Krishna. So this based on these words, it clearly confirms the Dvaita philosophy, and it clearly contradicts the Advaita philosophy propagated by the Mayavadis. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Thank you, Ru. Okay. Thank you.